MMAOddsBreaker, welcome back to Barbarian. Tim Boetsch today to the program. Fighting UFC 183, of course, in my hometown, January 31st at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, battling against the Thales Leites. You're in Maine again, training with Marcus. Last time we spoke, your last camp was with Marcus, so it seemed to work really well for you.
Yeah.
Is that is what's going to happen from now on in? Every time it's time for training camp, you're going back to Maine to work out with Marcus Davis. Is that correct?
That's what I've got planned for the foreseeable future here. Definitely like the formula Marcus and I have worked out. It's good to reconnect with him. Really happy to be here.
Do you, how much time is there usually between fights for you? I mean, obviously, the last time you fought was in August, and then this fight's in January, so that's a pretty quick turnaround. But is it normally that fast for you, or is it just fast this time right now?
Yeah, no, that seems to be the typical time frame. And honestly, the way things are going, if I stay healthy after this fight, I wouldn't mind taking another one, maybe even a little bit faster. So for me, as long as I'm healthy, I want to fight. I'm kind of at that stage in my career where I want to get as many fights in as I can. And try to get where I want to be, and taking 6 or 8 or 10 months off in between fights doesn't really lend well to that, making that happen.
If you could walk into Dana White and go, look, here's the deal. I want to fight X amount of times per year. Barring injury, I'm going to be healthy. What's the best case scenario for you? Is it 4 times a year, 3 times a year, 5 times a year?
I think probably best case is 3. I think anything more than that, for me anyway, I start playing with overtraining issues.
Yeah.
And just, I hate making weight, so having to do that more than 3 times a year isn't much fun.
What's your weight like? How heavy are you right now?
This one's been a bit of a struggle, honestly. I don't know if it was due to the holidays or what, but I'm a little bit heavier than I have been in the past. But I'm gonna get that off. So.
Are we talking like a 5 pound, 6 pound difference? Are we talking like a 3 pound, 4 pound difference? Are we talking about a 10 pound difference? Like, are we talking about what kind of difference are we talking here?
Well, about 7 pounds heavier than where I normally am in camp at this point. But I don't know what it is. But I'm training good. I feel good. Conditioning wise, I feel good. So I assume that when I get that 7 more pounds off, I'm going to be feeling even better. And I'm only 7 pounds off of my mark, and I kind of judge on where I go, what my weight is when I leave for fight week. So I still have 2 weeks before I leave. So 7 pounds for the course of 2 weeks isn't that big of a deal.
No, especially like most people or when they first start a diet that are inactive, they're losing a lot of weight every week, and then obviously all the normal nutritionists or like the non-athletic nutritionists are talking about 2.5 pounds is a way to keep weight off forever. But when you're talking about an athlete and you're talking about guys that can, you can in training camp eating, a multitude of calories that put most people into a diabetic coma, you're working it off every day and you're still losing weight. So 2 weeks away for 7 pounds is not that big of a deal at all.
Right. Yeah.
So
I haven't got yet. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. So let's talk about this game plan with Leites. I mean, is he? What do you think he's gonna? Is he gonna try to do anything different to you than what he's done in his last 4 or 5 fights?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think with the level of success he's had his past few fights with that formula, I don't see him straying from that at all. So, he's definitely more confident in his striking ability than in the past, and for good reason. He's hitting people hard and hurting them. So, why would he abandon that? That's something I definitely expect him to see, or expect to see from him early on in the fight. And, I think it's, on paper, looks like it's going to be an exciting fight if he comes out with that style.
Well, he's on a fight win streak, 7-fight win streak right now, and he's got to have a ton of confidence coming in. He's a decision Ed Herman, decision Tom Watson, Matt Horowitz, Jeremy Horn, Francis Carmount was his last fight, and he knocked him out. He does hit extremely hard and does know how to put guys down. But in your opinion, do you think he relies on his striking a little bit too much sometimes during the fight?
Well, I think he relies on people being scared of his striking. If you watch him technically, it's not clean technical striking, but this is MMA. You don't need to be a technical striker to be efficient. But what he does is I think he puts a little bit of fear into guys early, and that opens up a whole new game for him. Once he gets that kind of bully effect going on in the octagon, then it certainly lends to his game. But, part of our game is just not allowing that to happen. He can come out and try and bully me and do that stuff, but I'm going to shut it down as quick as I can.
Now, I want to talk about Luke Rockhold. It was one of the fights that you lost just a little while ago, and actually that was your 2 fights ago. You lost that back in April of 14. And Luke right now is down training with Dan Henderson, getting him ready to fight Gegard Mousasi. Luke also helped Daniel Cormier get ready for John Jones, and it's now like seems like a lot of guys I talk to, a lot of athletes I talk to, when they're not in training camp, they're at somebody else's training camp, helping them get ready for their fights.
Yeah.
Do you do that? Do you go to other people's camps and help them get ready for their fights? You get called in to kind of help to be a body for somebody else?
I do not. For me, I've only got time enough to train and prepare for my fights. I've got 3 kids and a lot going on at home, and it's already. My wife's already kind enough to let me travel up to Maine and be away from the family for a couple months at a time to train for myself. But to ask her to give me more time to go help somebody else, that would be pushing it a little bit.
Yeah, well, the other reason, the reason why I bring that up is because it seems like now that still styles are making matchups, obviously, but it seems like Luke is super tall for the weight class comparatively. He's not, most guys are 6'1", 6'2", 6 foot, which is right where you're at. And you don't really have to adapt your style at all. Because I asked you earlier, do you think that Leites is going to do anything different to you than he has to anybody else? They don't really have to, because you're the average height, you're the average build for the weight class. It's not like you're dealing with like a John Jones who at 205 is super tall and super long, and you have to bring somebody in specifically for that. At the weight class, looking ahead to the future, obviously, Luke now is 1 fight away from being in a title shot. The next guy in line is what the rumor is. And that was just 1 fight, 2 fights ago from you. I mean, that could very easily be you right now. So you're that close right now to being in that space. Obviously, Weidman poses a different problem. He's the same height, but he's got a super huge wrestling background, but you have to bring a wrestler in for that. But I mean, other than that, who else at the weight class do you think, and besides Luke, obviously, who has a different body type, whether super tall or super short or super long or super lanky, that you would have to really sit down and with Marcus to really go over a real tough game plan and figure out the guys you're going to fly into Maine to train with you for that kind of opponent? I mean, is there anybody even pops in your head right now? Because I know you're in the middle of a training camp for somebody else. It's tough to think about, an arbitrary person.
It's a tough thing to do when you get guys like that with a very specific body type or a very specific fighting style, like a Machida or something. Yeah. It's almost impossible to fly somebody in to mimic that. So you can kind of fooling yourself if you truly believe you've got somebody that can actually mirror what's going to happen in the octagon. It's actually quite a big difference. So for me, it's more of making sure that when I get into the octagon, that I bring the best barbarian, the best Tim Boetsch is going to show up that night. And if that happens, it doesn't matter, what their game plan is or what their style or what their body type is. If I do what I'm capable of doing, everything's going to take care of itself.
See, and we've talked about that before in our other interviews that we've done together. You've said the exact same thing. Like, I can't worry about everybody else because, like you said, you just can't mimic the guy. You can have the body type, but it's going to be a different timing, a different look, a different speed, and it's just never going to be the same. And it is tough. We're in tough situations when we compete because everyone is so different. Even if the heights are the same, it's still a different character.
I mean, it's easy for us to understand it, but even watching film, you can only take so much from watching a video of a guy until you're actually, in there staring him down and seeing it firsthand. That's the only time you really get a true look at what's going on in there.
Are there any other fights on this card that you're super excited about watching, even though they're on the same card that you're on?
The main event, obviously, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Anderson, see how things hold up, see what his condition and mentality is in the octagon. I'm very interested to see what happens in there.
And I was talking to interviewed Chael Sonnen a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this fight. Like, it's the biggest fight, obviously. So far it's early in the year, but this is a huge fight. The most anticipated fight that we were talking about was Cormier and Jones, which just happened, and that fight didn't sell out. And the Silva Diaz fight sold out within 2 hours after the tickets were going on sale. It was completely sold out. It's such an intriguing matchup. It's such a tough thing to look at. Then to put on the co-main event of Woodley and Gastelum, and then below that have Lozon and Iaquinta. It's like a huge, amazing card to put together. Then of course, before Lozon obviously is your fight, but you look at this fight, and it's so tough to pick, to pull it apart. Is Silva going to kick? Because we all know that Diaz doesn't check kicks; he just absorbs them. But Silva going to kick and take the risk with his leg? Is it? He's not going to be able to outstrike count Diaz, but will he be hit him with speed? It's tough. Like have you had a time to analyze this fight? Do you see how it's going to break down at all?
Well, I'm curious to know if Anderson still has that titanium rod in his shin. Does anybody know the facts on that?
Yeah, I think the rod is there for good now. I think it's embedded and it's staying put. So that leg is going to be stronger than ever, but it's still going to hurt when you kick with it. He's still going to feel pain when he lands shin to shin. It just won't ever break and flop around like that again. But it's still going to hurt.
So that brings up the issue with. Should we all be allowed to bring a titanium pipe into the octagon and rip? So, I'm just see what happens with that shin. But if whatever you kick with it breaks, hey, this is something to think about.
They said the same thing when Tim Sylvia had his arm broken by Frank Mir because he had a rod put in, and they were like, that's not fair because now he gets to hit people with it, and you can't ever break his arm again in that same space. So you can't really, it's the reality of life. But there's so much tissue around it. There's so much blood and vessels and muscle that at the end of the day, it really is not going to make that much of a difference. But you're talking about a forearm. There's meat in there. You're talking about a shin. When a guy's hitting you with the shin, it's totally different. So you actually do raise a pretty good question.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in there. So
we'll
find enough.
Yeah, we sure will. Just in a couple of weeks, we'll know exactly what's going on, what happens with it. So Tim, thanks for coming out here. I appreciate it. Tell Marcus I said hi, and I'll see you guys in Vegas when you come in town.
All right, looking forward to it.
Take care,
Thanks for
buddy.
having me on.
You got it, man. Have a great rest of the day.
All right, take care.